up, everybody? I'm Sal Kalani. This is Reggie Steele. And welcome to Spitballin. Spitballin.
What's up, everybody? I'm Sal Kalani. This is Reggie Steele.
And welcome to Spitballin.
Boom. Got ourselves a guest today, Reg. Got ourselves a guest.
Yes, sir. I'm excited about today's guest, too. Good friend of both of ours, Mr. Kellen Erskine. I'm like, oh, man. You guys just work together.
He's on the road right now in Connecticut. Or in, he was doing Jersey, and then I think they're driving him to Connecticut, so that's why we had to start a little later. Okay. So he might be coming in right off the road when we talk to him, so we'll see.
Holy cow. Okay. We talking to a working comedian who's actually
in the zone right now.
In the zone right now. Like,
yeah.
Come on, folks. It gets no better than this. Who's bringing you live comedians working?
Right on the scenes,
right on the scene,
in the trenches.
Dude.
Speaking of trenches, dude, I'm 2-0 on these bets you keep making, Reg. I told you, what's his name? Poontan wasn't just flexing. Dude went to war this week.
Poontan, yeah, this dude is next level, man. I was reading about it last night, and I think he has a legitimate argument in the sense that NATO and the U.S. forces have all been gathering up around his border, right? But at the same time, he's been wanting to take Ukraine back for a long time.
Wait, what is he saying? He wants to get around their border?
No, I mean, Ukraine was a part of the Soviet Union.
Yeah, so that's his justification. Well, they should be again, they're independent.
Well, he's saying that because they speak Russian in Ukraine, and they used to be under Soviet rule for a long time. But the thing is that Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania,
Belarus,
not
Kazakhstan,
not Belarus.
Oh.
I'm talking about the countries that are now part of NATO.
Oh.
Right. So those countries are part of NATO, and they have, forces, NATO forces there, and then some US forces are kind of behind that. So he's saying two things. He's saying, for one, Ukraine used to be a part of the Soviet Union, and there are some Russian sympathizers, or some areas of Ukraine that are Russian sympathizers.
Tell them to move then.
Right. They speak the language, but he's also saying that, they have these forces there that are like basically knocking at his front door. Because the article I read last night was from a speech that he gave, I guess on Monday or Tuesday, where he was like, I don't have missiles or bases at the US borders, right? Like pointing in their direction or whatever the case may be. So it's just a way of justifying it. He just want to get it back.
Bottom line,
absolutely.
He was worried that Ukraine would join NATO and then they'd be more untouchable. But
yeah,
I saw a lot of footage of these people in Ukraine. They don't want them there. They don't want to be there. I was reading this article. This is interesting. There's the boxing heavyweight champ. His name is Vitaly Klitschko.
Okay.
Right? Kitschko. But anyway, he was he's like a Hall of Famer, and him and his brother are sticking around in Ukraine to fight. Like, he's the mayor of Kiev.
Not Kiev.
Vitaly,
no, not
Kiev. Kiev. How do you say it?
Kiev.
He's the fucking mayor. This boxer, this former heavyweight boxer.
Oh yeah, the Klitschko brothers, right? Yeah. They were both like 6'6" and 6'8" or something.
Yeah, so they're going. I mean, this shit's getting crazy. They're going to take up arms, and yeah, man, it's kind of messed up. And then that orange piece of shit Trump said that Putin's moves were genius.
No,
this guy is so un-American. I can't believe people still support such
I'm not even gonna say
shit.
I'm not even gonna say he's un-American. I'll go as far as to say he's un-American and anti-democratic.
Yeah, he's very anti-democrat.
Yeah,
he's
anti-democratic,
dictator.
but what is it? Damn, man, I can't think of the word right now. Democracy. He's anti-democracy. Right. That's it. Because he is constantly lauding and praising these tyrannical leaders, like these the communist leaders or the authoritarian leaders, whatever, like anybody who's not a part of a democracy, he praises them.
Yeah.
Right?
It's crazy, dude.
Yeah, all the countries that have democracy, this dude he doesn't say anything. He's at odds with them. He can't get along with them. He can't relate to them. He wants to be, this motherfucker wants to be a king.
Yeah. Take that shit back to the Middle Ages, bro.
Yeah, exactly. He wants to be a king, man. He's such an idiot. I read that article.
Clown.
He's such a clown. He's like, oh, it's a genius move to move in for peacekeeping operations. I was like, you motherfucker. God. Dude, he's the biggest piece of shit ever. I swear to God. Honestly, man, he is. He would have been better off just sticking with his bankrupt ass companies and and having his gaudy over the top fucking gold walls and floors and ceilings and his piece of shit hotels and just being this make-believe millionaire, billionaire, what the fuck he thinks he is, versus going into politics and just.
And now they're coming after him in court because they found out all his lies for 10 years.
Exactly.
He was lying about his finances to get bigger loans. And,
there's a saying. Listen, there's a saying. Absolutely. I hope they get all this shit. There's a saying. It is better to be thought a fool than to open one's mouth and remove all doubt.
Yeah, it's better to remain silent and be thought a fool.
Yep, it's better to
remove all doubt.
Exactly.
And there's a great Simpsons where Homer or Lisa says that, and then Homer goes, "What does that mean? Better say something so they don't think you're stupid." And he goes, "Knows." He goes, "Takes one to know one."
That's hilarious. That's hilarious. That's great. That's great. So yeah, man, this dude, and the fact that we're even talking about him again, and the fact that he's still lingering, right?
Well, it's crazy how long Putin's been lingering. He's been able to hold on power forever in Russia.
Well, yeah, he's gonna keep it forever, right?
Yeah. You kind of look like 50 Cent right now with that hat and the white T-shirt, because that's what he was just wearing at the Super Bowl, and he had a little chin hair there.
Yeah,
just be like, go,
shorty, it's your birthday. Go, you can find me in the club, bottle full of bub. Look, mommy, I got that X if you're into making love. I ain't trying to have sex. I ain't trying to, you know, whatever. Maybe I should hang upside down. I'm telling you right now. Listen, I do not have the money that he has, but I do not have the body that he has right now. That body was bad, especially hanging upside down and knowing what he looked like beforehand. Yo, I'm telling you right now, I could hang upside down and people would be like, this is so much better than 50 Cent right now. We're like, oh, this dude should have been hanging upside down in the Super Bowl as a body double.
It's been 20 years since that album. So
hey man, look, it's been 20 years since.
All right, he was able to get up there. I saw the side angle of him climbing. He walked right up. He just jumped up in there and hung down, and there's right to a shot. Yeah.
Look, it's been 20 years for me too, right? I graduated college in 96.
Yeah, but you ain't eating like 50's eating.
You're right. I'm eating better.
Right,
I'm eating cleaner. That's all I'm saying. I'm eating cleaner and I'm eating better. Right. So, maybe that is the thing. He's eating a little too much. He needs to chill out. Look, I'm not gonna fat shame this dude. So I'll stop there. I ain't gonna fat shame him.
Good for 50.
Good
it
for
was
50.
Cool seeing it. It was a nice surprise.
It was. At first I was like, yo, they did not mention that dude going into it.
Yeah. It's good that way. You gotta have some surprises. It's interesting though. It's funny. Everybody plays their most famous song. Like that's, I was like, of course, Eminem's gonna do "Lose Yourself" and 50's gonna do "In the Club."
Well, you had to, right? Because this is
the Super Bowl. Yeah,
it's the Super Bowl. You can't come with some obscure shit. People are like, why is he even here? You can't come with something just for the hip hop heads or the true hardcore fans who know track 13 on the third album and shit, right? You gotta go with the bangers, bro. So but yeah, man, you called it. Now I will say this, you called it as far as saying that they were going to go to war, but my opinion changed afterwards, because it was like at first I was like, oh hey, he's just posturing, and I figured at some point he's going to go in, but I just didn't think it would be this quickly. And and this dude, the funny thing about it was, it's not funny because it's war. People could potentially lose lives, but this dude literally just kind of walked into the country. right? Like he sat there for a long time sitting outside, and then he was like, "We're just gonna kind of creep into
Well,
this
they
area."
bombed too. They hit some cities and military targets early on.
Well, yeah, no, they did.
Missiles.
Yeah, but I'm talking about as far as like how long he was posturing on the border, and
Yeah.
then he's, his peacekeeping mission into
Oh yeah, they
the
first walked in, and then
yeah,
they
they
bombed,
just
and all
they
walked
just
in.
kind of walked in. It was like,
And
no,
now they're coming in from all three sides.
Yeah, no, dude. I'm
It's,
telling you, it's
I mean, yeah, it's a wrap. A country that like Ukraine doesn't have the military power next to Russia.
well, you heard what Zelensky said, right? He's like, we
What
will
he said.
defeat anybody because we are Ukraine. It's like, sorry, bro, this is Russia, right?
Yeah.
And man, I do not want to go to war with Russia. I do not want to go to war with Russia. I mean,
Well,
they're
we're
nuclear
not-
power.
I mean, they're just gonna
They're take over
back Ukraine, and I don't know, man. What are you gonna
That
do?
sucks. That
You're
sucks.
gonna put some sanctions on them and don't work with them, and whatever, bro.
Yeah,
I mean,
sucks,
hey,
man.
we grew up at a time when it was way bigger. They had more than just Ukraine.
Yeah, no, you're right.
They had parts of Germany and everything, so they've shrunk and
Cold War
man.
era.
But him being back in power, that's eventually what his goal is going to do, is to expand Russia. But yeah, no, that sucks, man. I don't
It's
know.
not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen, yo. Hold on, let me turn my mic down. It's not gonna happen, man. I mean, it's gonna happen, but the expansion is stopping though, because the rest of the world they'll have to get in at some point, right? It'll just
Right,
but I mean,
depends.
look, if it's about protecting communism or dictatorships or whatever the case may be, I mean, who we got to do with Russia and China?
Yeah.
I don't want to go to war with either one of them motherfuckers.
No, there's a lot of people in those two countries.
Goddamn right. Shit. I mean, look, it's a what's funny is that there are a billion people in China, and for whatever reason, it feels like there's a billion people in their army. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
well, yeah, you have to be. Like, people are way tougher in there about they're like, you have to be in the military. Oh, hey,
Yeah.
Kellen's joining. All right, dude. Look at that. On time, a punctual guy.
yes, sir.
All right, dude. You want to introduce him?
Yes. All right. Well, hey, folks. Oh, wait, hold up. Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So, hey, folks, we're really excited to welcome our guest to the show today. He's a friend of ours from way back. We've seen this guy come up through the trenches and make it happen. You may have seen him on America's Got Talent or on Conan. He's a nationally touring headliner who's currently on the road in the mix of making it happen right now. Please welcome to the show one of our favorites and friends, Kellen Erskine.
Yeah, there he is.
Kellen. He's here. He's here.
Thanks, guys.
How's it going, buddy?
Good, man. The podcast with comics. You guys are the only ones like who pronounce my name right.
Good thing we know you for like 10 years.
Yeah, exactly. I've been looking at it all morning. I was like, okay, ERS, I gotta hit the Erskine, so
The best one I ever got, I was doing a show, and I'm sure this happens to you, Sal, too, because
yeah.
Kalani is, if somebody doesn't ask you like 2 or 3 times how to say your name, it's not going to work out. I was doing a show at one of the improvs, and this comic's like, he rushes up to me. He's like, what's your name? And I said, Kellen Erskine. And he's like, got it. And he walked onto the stage, and I was like, there's no way he got it. But then he introduced me as welcome to the stage, Calvin Earthshine. I was like, that's so much better than my
Earthshine.
Earthshine. He turned you into a hippie.
Well,
Calvin Earthshine. It might as well have been Moon, Moonshine, Moon Earth. I don't know.
Saying it
daffodils.
happens to me. When I just worked with you at the Punchline in San Francisco, the opener
that's right.
messed
Oh,
up
that's
my
right.
name twice, like
2 nights in a
times.
row.
I was like, the
Wait,
fuck,
what-
bro?
I was there for one of them. What did he call you?
I don't even know.
It was a Kaluna.
Kaluna, yeah.
Kaluna, yeah.
A Kalua over.
Welcome to the stage, Sal Kalua. Kalua?
Yeah,
Okay.
man.
So
But yeah, so yeah, it does happen.
yeah. So Kellen, where are you right now?
I'm in Connecticut, Bridgeport, Connecticut. Doing
Okay.
the Stress Factory. You ever been out here? It's my first time.
No, never been to. I've visited Connecticut just on some personal stuff, but never as a
Okay.
comedian.
Yeah.
I've
But
seen
they
the
have
Mark Twain Museum, his house, when Mark Twain's house, we hung out.
Oh,
Said
okay,
hi.
cool.
Wait, hold up. So the comedy club is called The Stress.
The Stress Factory.
And they have one in Jersey too, right?
They do, yeah.
So did you do Jersey
Brunswick.
last night?
Right, yeah.
Okay, how was it?
It was okay. It was it was one of those shows where most of the audience was one group. There was a Rotary Club, and it's always like, I think if I owned a comedy club, there would be a rule that no more than 2 friends can go at a time. There's just something about, like, we've all done those shows where like there's a bachelorette party or a bachelor party, and it's so weird to me when like 15 best friends get together and they're like, let's go to a place where we're not supposed to talk for 2 hours.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah, it's the worst.
How is that a good time? You know,
It's the
just
worst
go to
time.
Chili's, yeah. So this was like, this is a group of like 60 of them, and
Wow.
it was wild. Like they liked it when I was making fun of them, because obviously that's like a corporate event, you know,
Right.
digging into their friends. But then it sucks because you go back into your like good pre-written A game material, and they're like, nah, we want to hear you rip into Randy again.
It's like, hey guys, you didn't pay me for this. Like, you didn't pay me enough for a private show.
Oh yeah.
Right? Yeah. Now, if you want a private show, that's completely possible, but we gotta have to renegotiate the terms, right? So it's like, they're paying me to do this material.
Yeah,
that's what I'm doing. Dude, that's the worst. Bachelorette parties, and like you just said, groups of friends come together. It's in 60.
Yeah.
60.
That's huge.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Kellen.
That's
I
like the whole
apologize.
club, damn near.
Yeah. Look,
yeah.
I'm not a part of this, but I apologize. Right? Like, I'm sorry that you had to deal with that. Like, every comedian who's going to listen to this or hear this or listening right now understands exactly what you're talking about, and we all sympathize with you, right? It's like, geez, 60 friends.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah,
and that's why. I mean, that's one of the reasons why corporates pay that much. I love it. Dan St. Paul calls the money of corporate gigs embarrassment pay.
It's so accurate.
That's pretty funny.
It's pretty funny. That's so accurate. That's exactly what it is.
It's not a regular show with that group.
Well, can we address the name Stress Factory? I mean, shouldn't it be Stress Relief Factory? Right? Like,
yeah, I guess you're right.
Yeah, exactly. Like, is this what I'm walking into? Basically, it's a warning. Hey, you're gonna be at the Stress Factory tonight. Oh, oh, okay. All right, here we go.
Do you have 2 shows tonight in Connecticut and tomorrow?
Yeah, 2 tonight, 2 tomorrow. Yeah.
Okay, cool, man.
Who's on the show with you? Is it just you, or they have locals opening?
Yeah, I don't know who's opening for me, but yeah.
Okay. Wow. All right. Well, Kellen, thank you for being here, man. We appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, man.
All right. So we're just curious, man. We've known you, but we love for everyone else to get to know you. We think you're phenomenal. You know, you and I just spoke recently in San Francisco, and in that conversation, I was like, man, I wish I had the microphone or recording in that moment, because you were just dropping in terms of hip hop, you was dropping jewels, right? You was dropping gems of knowledge, bro. Like, I was straight up. I was talking to my boy Mahershala last night, and I was he was asking me about today. He was like, so, you know, what do you guys got going on with the podcast? And I was like, oh man, we're gonna be interviewing Kellen, this guy that I've known for years, and you know, I just saw him recently, and he and I had this great conversation. I ended up talking to him about what you and I were talking about, which we will get to later. And he was like, yo, man, that's good stuff. Like, that's it, right? Like, that level of professionalism and commitment to your craft and your artistry. So yeah, man, I'm excited to get to that later on down the line. But
like, you're hiding it like it's the gold inside.
Dude, it's just,
suitcase.
it's just, dude, it was just, for me personally, it was, it was revealing and rewarding, and it just showed a mindset, man, that I could just appreciate. But we'll get to that later, Sal. Now we just want to know, where did Kellen grow up, and how did comedy become a thing? Like, what were your earliest influences, or was there comedy in the house? funny people in the house.
There wasn't a lot of comedy. My parents had a Bill Cosby record, and I like to say this. I feel like I was ahead of my time. I never thought he was that funny.
I love that he actually said it out loud. No one would ever say that out loud, right? But, okay. So,
and it wasn't okay to say that like up till about 4 years ago.
yeah. Prior to that, you'd have had to fight.
Right. I get why he was so big. I mean, but he would have like a lot of it didn't even seem like jokes to me. Like he literally has a joke where he would say, I didn't know how snakes moved around like that, but I caught one time and turned it over, and there were tiny feet, and the little feet were wearing sneakers, and it's just crushing. And I was like, I guess I don't understand comedy.
You're like, dude, you picked up a millipede or a centipede with shoes, right?
Then a friend of mine gave me a Stephen Wright cassette tape when I was like 13.
Wow.
That explains a lot.
Okay, this is what comedy can be, these jokes. And then when my parents would watch The Tonight Show, and sometimes I would like watch at the crack of the living room door, and I saw comics that way. Like Gary, that was the first time I saw Gary Shandling, that sort of thing.
Wow.
And then it was crazy to see like then I really got into it, and like Richard Pryor, so I just thought was phenomenal, that energy and that honesty and like joke, and I fell in love with it. Yeah.
How did you discover Pryor? Because they probably didn't play it on TV much.
Right. It was the same thing. A friend had a cassette tape that was recorded from like his parents' record because he wasn't allowed to listen to it.
Wow.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, but that's the only way we could access that sort of thing, in the 90s.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so your mom or your dad, neither one of them were funny per se.
Nope.
But no, an uncle.
Was there anybody?
Siblings?
You got any siblings?
Me and my younger brother, we were close. We joked around a lot. So like everything that I did, I'm pretty introverted. So like it was me and him and like a close friend, and we would make each other laugh. And that was comedy for me growing up. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So Bill Cosby wasn't funny, but then Stephen Wright.
Hey, Reggie and I saw Stephen Wright in concert in SF, and Reggie fell asleep during for like a half hour. Like he woke up, and I mean, I wasn't as into it either, but then I turned over and he's like, "What? It's almost done."
Hold up. You fell asleep too.
No, I didn't fall asleep. I sat there, I was like, I wanted to sleep. I was jealous. You were totally out.
Dude, you didn't fall asleep? I thought we both fell asleep. All these years, I really thought that we were like brotherhoods in sleep.
No, man, I can't sleep in public with 1,000 people around me.
Okay, hold up though. Just for the record, growing up, I loved Stephen Wright. He was hilarious. He was funny. I worked that day. If you remember, I worked that day, and I went to the show. It was at the Warfield, I think.
That's what people do every comedy show.
Yeah, but I worked that day. I had worked that day. I was tired, and his pacing for me at that time was just a little
slow. It
was so slow, and he was playing his guitar and doing some other stuff. It was just like,
I don't remember a guitar. I just remember him talking.
Then he played a guitar. He can play the guitar, right?
Yeah,
he just came out.
He has a guitar. He came out with the guitar. He started hitting those melodies, dude, and it was just like.
It was a lullaby to Red.
Yeah, Stephen Wright is best in like those 5-minute clips that you find on the Tonight Show and stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I was gonna say one of my favorite jokes of his is I remember one time watching him on some young comedians thing or whatever, and he has a glass and he's trying to put it on his stool, right? But he keeps hitting the edge of it. And so finally, instead of moving the glass over to the stool, he moves the stool over to the glass. Cracked me up. I was like, because he stood there for like a minute and a half, like 30 seconds, like trying to get this glass just on the edge. And then finally he just, and he moves it over. I was like, yo, you got me. So I've always appreciated his comedy, right? His ability to come up with these ideas and stuff. So, okay. So that was it. Your friend gave you some access to some other comedians. Gary Shandling. Did you watch his show growing up, the Gary Shandling show at all?
No, we didn't have HBO or anything like that. So I just knew him from stand up. Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, his show was on Fox, I think it was.
Oh,
Early
was
days
it?
of Fox.
Okay.
Yeah. The Gary's.
One of them was on HBO.
One of
I
them
can't-
was.
Yeah.
Okay. And so so that was your introduction to comedy. And you're like,
Mhm.
I kind of want to do this. Like, I like this. And so from there, how do you, because that was at 13, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And so after that, so what do you do for those next years? And when do you actually start trying to pursue it?
I chickened out on a talent show, a high school talent show. I wrote a whole set for it and never did it. When I was 16. And
That's tough. That's tough at 16.
Yeah.
oh yeah,
Especially with
And-
your peers. Oh,
Oh, yeah.
Woo.
And the thing that sucked about it too is that there was a kid who actually went up and he just nervously read these street jokes on 3x5 cards and he crushed. And I was like, I should have
Oh.
tried.
That was the beginning of like sitting in the back of the open mic and not going up thinking, I can't do this. And then watching someone go up and just do something horrible and do well. And you're like,
Well,
shoot.
that guy. Yeah.
Yeah, if that guy can go up and do that. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah, I even had I had this joke written. I had hair. It was the 90s. I had blonde hair that was parted down the middle. And I had this joke where it was like a topical thing because the helmet rule came into it was in like 96 or something like that. The bike helmet rule was enforced.
Oh, okay.
And I said, this is what I do if I ever get pulled over by a cop and I like without a helmet, I would throw my head forward. This is just for my friends. I was going to try it on stage. I'd throw my head forward and all my hair would sort of look like a helmet. And then the big joke for the talent show was going to be that the cop said, "Can you take it off?" And then I would say, "Give me 40 years." That was the big, but then I started going bald when I was 21. So that's
so in that case, you're like, give me 4 years. I overestimated just a little bit. Right. So okay, well, real quick before we keep going, wait, where did you grow up, Kellen?
I grew up in Campbell, right there by San Jose.
Oh, that's right down the street in San
South
Jose.
Bay. Yeah.
Okay, and you went to high school in Campbell?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Okay. Now what is Campbell known for? As far as like, has anybody come out of Campbell aside from you and done something?
Not that
Campbell soup. That's hilarious.
Not that I know of. I mean, it's a town of like 30,000 people. I mean, everything is just connected because to me, it's all just one, Campbell, Saratoga, Los Gatos, Cupertino, Sunnyvale, Mountain View, San Jose. It's all just like one thing.
Look at that. Just rolled right off.
I know.
The tongue. Like
He said that a couple of times.
No, I just grew up there.
Okay. I'm like, holy cow, I feel like you prepared. I was like, is that a part of the joke?
One of those Animaniacs songs where they name all the capital cities.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, so all right, so let's get back to this. So you're 16 and you bail on the talent show with your original material, which I'm sure would have killed. All right, and so now that's sophomore year in high school. So junior, senior year, did you ever join any of the other talent shows?
No, didn't do anything. The first comedy thing I ever did, I was 23, and I did actually was a talent show for a church group of single adults. So finally worked up the courage. But this is like one of those, I feel like we have these stories a lot, and I'd love to know what your first experiences were because it seems pretty almost universal in the comedy community. That first show, they were super supportive, like way more than they should have been. It was It was my first set ever. Yeah. So they're not going to let me bomb. But I did like 10 minutes, which is a crazy amount of time for your first time.
Yeah.
And did way too, it hit way too hard. But that's what propelled me through my first like couple dozen open mics, because I went into the real world of comedy and just tanked. But every show I would come off of it thinking, yeah, but I know that I can do this.
Nice.
Even though I
Right.
really couldn't, it was
Yeah.
it was just this sort of false sense of confidence, to get you through. And I think that, isn't that funny? Like when you first start out, you have like, I feel like I had more confidence then from being disillusioned than I did like 5 years later,
Right,
because you
right.
start
Yeah.
to learn more about comedy and what you really want to be. Yeah.
Well, I think I can speak for Sal when I say this. He and I both started in the San Francisco Comedy College, right?
Okay,
And
which is very supportive.
super supportive. Like you have the other comics that are coming out, and then it's like friends and family. And we end up doing a lot of at that time, like private shows, like little benefit shows and fundraiser shows. And
That was a bit later. Because I remember my first one was the luggage store, and then the brainwash.
The luggage store.
And then when I did it, like I didn't know you could email to sign up. So I was like, I got there at 8:00, sitting there on 6th and Market, scary as fuck, kid from Ohio. Like, good lord, dude, these crackheads are fighting in front of me and shit. So finally they let us in, and I get up there, and all these guys are ahead of me, like 20 guys. So I wait 3 hours. There's 3 people left. I go up, and only one person laughed, but that was it. Like, just because I was like, oh, that one person got it, and then it was like a drug, and then you just like and it was a crawl. It wasn't like some big supportive thing, but when you just get that one person, that's all you need in the beginning.
Okay, well, so for me, it was I didn't even know what an open mic was. Like I signed up for the comedy college, and the guy who helped me, who kind of got me started as far as like introducing it to me, he asked me like a week later, he goes, have you done an open mic yet? And I was like, what's an open mic? I had no idea. Right. So for me, my introduction to comedy was strictly through the comedy college, and then doing all those shows. When I say that, like every show was like the church show as far as like the level of support.
Yeah,
so
very supportive of those shows.
Super supportive. So my early confidence was really high based on those shows.
I'll say this, like you're with a lot of other people who are brand new, so you could stand out a lot.
Right. Well, and to my credit, I would say this, and not to my credit, but I'll say this. So playing basketball in college, I used to on the road trips, in the hotels, in the airports, in the restaurants, every place that we were like in transit to, or like had a moment to sit down and just kind of relax before we went to the next thing, I would literally get up and tell stories about what happened in practice, what coach said, or what happened to one of the players on the team, or what he did, during conditioning or whatever. And I would just act out all these things. And my teammates, it's 15 of us, 13 to 15 of us, and they are cracking up to the point that they're just like, yo, Rich, you got to tell that story again about what coach said. So it was lightweight training for stand-up to some degree.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I had been doing that since high school, but never had thought about ever doing stand-up. You know what I mean?
So you probably had a way easier transition than I did to this stage, because you were already in sort of this rhythm of making groups of people laugh based on stories. I had nothing to go on other than I knew I could make my friends laugh, but it turns out to be a different skill when you're up on stage making strangers laugh.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
how does
there's
an
also
introvert get on stage?
Yeah, that's a good one.
Oh, it took 5 or 6 years before I was over the stage fright. Yeah, but it's interesting though, the whole introvert thing, because it doesn't necessarily mean I'm afraid of people. Some introverts do have social anxiety. I'm not quite on to that end of the spectrum. It's more that like when I'm in a group of people that I don't know, it's when I'm just more comfortable shutting down.
I'm like that
like
too.
I don't
like crowds like that.
Yeah, I don't feed off of the energy of other people, and that's what extroverts are. Like you can kind of tell who's an introvert versus extrovert after a show. Like, how do you wind down? If you're someone like a Colin Moulton, he tries to get in front of more people. Like, let's all go to in and out after the show. Let's all go bowling now. And right. I have to take a breath and go back to the hotel and watch Netflix or something. It's just sort of like, it's exhausting for me. So I'm not necessarily like, but I think the difference too is that on stage, it is a different dynamic. When I'm with a group of people, it's almost like introverts, it's almost like we feel like we don't have permission to talk, or like we are taking time away from other people. So I'm a lot less, I don't poke into the circle and feel like I have something to offer. But when I'm on stage, it's almost like I've been given permission to say something. So
Right,
so
right.
it's okay to talk to all of these people. But stage fright, I think introverts and extroverts can both have stage fright. And that took me 5 or 6 years. And I realized that I was over it one night when I was eating a full-on burrito before a show. And I was like, oh, I guess I can do this now.
I can't do that. I cannot
Yeah.
Still can't.
Dude,
that'll fuck my stomach up.
I was gonna say, eating before a show, not gonna happen. I'm
Oh,
talking
really?
about.
Okay.
Oh my
but
goodness.
It's not because you're nervous though, right?
No, I just
I-
don't want any stomach issues up there.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I don't drink soda or anything.
Well,
yeah.
Sal has IBS. Let's just go ahead and throw that out there.
Okay.
You don't want to be burping and stuff, you know.
Yeah.
No, for
In
me,
between
it's
shows maybe.
so for me, for what it comes down to is I don't eat before shows because whenever I eat, you know, it's like the whole digestion process, right? The blood goes to your stomach to digest your food. So I've always felt like I was just a little lethargic. Like I just didn't have the same energy,
Yeah.
right? And I wouldn't eat anything sweet because then I'd come out revved up and then just kind of, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
so I would eat, I almost did it like game prep, right? Where I would eat early and let the food digest, eat something that was sustainable, right? Like some protein or whatever the case may be, a little bit of carbs that has long sustainable energy. And then, but once I walk off stage, then I'll devour whatever's
Right.
around,
Then
right?
I'll eat.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I think for someone like me whose default stage is lethargic, it doesn't affect me as much.
Oh, that's funny. You're like, I'm gonna slow down even more.
Even
like,
more.
like that helps my jokes, right? Like, that helps for people to kind of, you know, stay with me. So, dude, that's awesome. But you know, I want to get back to this real quick because you made a good point, and I think it was an easier transition for me in that sense. I think also being an athlete and performing in front of people, even just in the form of, you know, playing the game, right?
Sure.
Running out in front of 10,000 people and people cheering, either booing for you or booing, you know, excited, like either booing against you or cheering for you. Like there's still an element of performance that kind of takes place as far as, you know, being in front of people. So wait, when did you find out? Did you always know that you were introverted? Like, or is there a moment where it's kind of like something doesn't feel right, or this doesn't feel good, or I don't like, when were you able to label it?
It's really just been in the last like 3 or 4 years. And then I
Wow.
read a book. There's a fantastic book called Quiet, and it's all about introverts versus extroverts. And I cried like half a dozen times reading the book because
wow.
I could relate with so much, but also because it just gave me this sense of relief that it's okay. You know, it's just, it's especially like sort of this Western American like behavioral ideal. Like we trust extroverts more. Extroverts do create a better first impression. But when it comes to like, we trust ideas from extroverts more, but it's simply like a biologically reactive thing. Like we trust someone who, if we can see like more of their teeth and a brighter smile and a warmer face, because we know that they're not going to kill us. Like that's where that comes from in every job. And I'm terrible at job interviews. I'm so glad I don't have to do that anymore, because you can't explain to someone hiring you like, look, we're really going to get along in about 4 weeks. But
That's awesome.
I know that I'm coming across right now as a little sinister, but that's not the case. And if you look like through history, they've done all these studies, extroverts and introverts, neither one of them has more good ideas than the other, but we trust extroverts more. That's why like more politicians are extroverts, because those are the people we elect, because you're like, I like that guy's face and voice, you know, like that's just what we do.
You know what it sounds like? It sounds like the extroverts have what it come across initially as being more confident.
Oh,
right?
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
And so what people are drawn to is that confidence,
Which
right?
could be
100%.
false a lot of times.
Which could be
too.
false, right? Is why, wow. Okay. That's interesting, because I'm not an introvert and I'm not an extrovert. right? Like I learned a long time ago that I'm completely fine with relinquishing control in those group dynamics and being, I'm good with playing the background, but I'm also okay with holding court as well if the baton is passed to me.
Sure.
But
so there is like, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, and the other one is in my personal life, I'm kind of an introvert and a recluse. Like I could legitimately go days without talking to anyone, without seeing anyone, being in my place, being completely fine and not think. But because I know that it's not healthy long term, I then have there've been times where I've been like secluded for like 2 or 3 days where I'm like, I didn't open the blinds, I didn't watch TV, I put on some music and I just get busy. And then I have a moment where I go, oh snap, I haven't talked to anybody. I need to go to the grocery store so I can just be around people, right? Interaction. Like I have to, because if not, then I fall deeper into that thing of like shutting off the world.
Sure. But yeah, so there are like 10% of people like you who are omniverts. So you're like in the middle.
Oh, okay.
And but I think it's helpful to be able to do both. And I wish that I could be like master of both worlds, because I've definitely, like, my career has been such a slow burn because I'm not good at hustling. I'm not good at talking to people that I don't know. I always feel like I'm like I'm not charming.
Okay.
And I've had to accept that. But I think they're also, in this book talks about a lot of this too. There's also like, let's lay off of a lot of introverts, because it's okay. It's okay to, if some people are just more self-reflective, and I think as a comic that really helps to be able to be alone and just write something for a while, or be alone driving to a gig. It's come in handy for me, because you are alone a lot, and people are like, I must be lonely on the road. And I'm like, I mean, maybe. Not
I'm with
for
you.
me.
Yeah, I'm with you, bro. I'm with you 100%. You're like, no, this is great, right? Like I can move at my own pace, right? Oh, that's beautiful. I want to comment on this too, because you said it's about 3 years ago where you realized what it was, and you said it was an emotional experience for you, and I imagine that it was an emotional experience from the standpoint of being able to actually label and understand what you've probably felt or have experienced your whole life, right? Without
100%,
knowing. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
100%. I always felt like I wasn't good enough. Like
right.
my whole life, I've gone to parties, or even so much of the comedy lifestyle, or things that we do as comics. Like once I'm off stage, I'm not that guy up there being able to make everyone laugh. It's up to someone else, especially, like I said, if I don't know people. So constantly feeling like, or going, like moving to LA and having to go to meetings and some parties and stuff, and just being by myself, not feeling like I'm good enough. I know that when I excuse me, at funerals, you always hear this, like, or in obituaries, like, he was when he walked into the room, he was just a light to everyone. Like he just lit up and I'm not that person. I never have been, but I felt like, I've always felt like I needed to be that. So then to be able to get the label and understand more about it, and that there are pros and cons to each of introverts and extroverts, but we all need each other. It's like there's no superiority in either group. So don't feel inadequate or bad about yourself just because you're not as comfortable talking to strangers. So that was just a relief for me, because now I can go into those situations knowing this is not necessarily where I add value.
Right.
But I know the situations where I can. What's that? Right.
I was going to say, maybe you don't add value in the sense that everyone does, initially does in that situation, but long term, you bring I think you bring, as you know now, but you bring a ton to the table. But it's about being patient, right? And being able to allow me to fully be who I am. And once you figure that out, which they have, and that's why you are where you are now, is that, oh no, this guy really truly does have a lot to bring to the table. Hey man, it's like you said, your career is it's been what'd you say? How'd you say it? You said it's been a slow burn. A slow burn. I think that personally, that's way better, because we've seen people who come out with a huge explosion and then they kind of peter, right? But that slow burn, those are the fires, like those are the ones that build into these raging, blazes, 5-alarm blaze, right? So, and there's something more sustainable about this trajectory, obviously, than, whatever. So
I think so. I hope so. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. There's no doubt
But-
about it. No question.
Yeah, you see some, and I see that with comics, but I mean, we all do it, where you know how many years you've been doing it, and then you know how many years this douchebag who just got a sitcom has been doing it.
Yeah.
And it's so hard not to be like, but I think I'm funnier. But then, yeah, you're right though. You do see a lot of careers like that, like, sorry, like Brian Simpson, like that guy. To me, he should have blown up years ago, but he's just now getting his stepping into the spotlight, and I think he's gonna have a great time.
You say Brian Simpson?
Yeah.
I don't know him. I'm gonna have to look him up.
Okay. Yeah, he's out of do you know who he is, Sal?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't want to say
Well,
anything.
you might soon. I think he just had a half hour on Netflix. Now I hope I'm saying his name right. Actually, I'm gonna look it up real quick. But Brian Simpson, yeah.
Okay.
So check him out. He's great. He's super tight material, and
Do you know him?
thanks, man. I hope that I don't. I've just seen him.
Oh, that's
Well-
cool.
Well, Kellen, I'm glad you bring that up, because you and I we kind of touched on that a little bit in San Francisco about just the perception.
Here it is, everybody. He's opening the suitcase.
Well, no, not just this is not it, but we'll get to that part later.
Get there already.
But he and I talked about you and I talked
Got two
about
shows tonight.
I know, but okay, we'll get to it. But he and I talked about, the mentality of a young comic early, right? And seeing things happen for people and potentially having some jealousy or some frustration and waiting and wanting those things to happen for you, and then realizing at some point, like, well, we all have our own journeys and our own paths. And just because something is happening for this person now doesn't mean that it won't happen for you at some point, but it's just being patient, So if you could talk about that real quick, when did that moment happen for you, as far as being able to kind of take a step back and go, all right, look, everyone has their own journey and I have to be patient with mine, or accept whatever my pacing is.
Yeah, I think I matured emotionally way too late, because I spent way too many years being jealous of people, and like it's embarrassing to think like how often I ranked myself, like thinking I was better than other people. It's just such an unhealthy, especially in the comedy world. So I had for way too long, I had that attitude of there's only so much pie. And so if someone is better than me or thinks they're better than me, they're going to take more of it.
Right.
And when the the attitude should be sort of the rising tide mentality, like that if this guy gets a special or a late night spot or whatever it is, like if I really feel like I am as good as as that person on a skill level, then it just means that my turn will come.
Right.
And that's when I was able to again, it's embarrassing to think how much time I wasted just with the toxic thoughts, and the fact that like coming to the realization that like there are so many people in the world, and the point is to not make everyone like you. That's another thing that I think is hard about watching other people kill, like being jealous of other people killing, is thinking that this audience tonight represents the 8 billion people on the planet, when the goal needs to be this is my mindset now, is that my goal isn't that I want everyone in the world to love me. It's just using the tools that we have so that the people who do align with my sense of humor will find me.
That's it.
And then we can all have a good time and forget the 99.9% of the rest of people. We'll just all hang out together. My daughter asked me if I wanted to be famous, and I said I want to be 0.1% famous, meaning that my goal is to just get 1,000 people in every major city to want to come see me. That's it. I don't want to be recognized in airports.
You can live good.
Yeah. If you like what I do, come out and let's have a good time. So that's where I'm at.
That's awesome.
That is awesome, man. And like I said in the green room, I know because you said the same thing then. You said I wasted so much time, right? And I don't know if you remember what I said, but I was like, like all that time is necessary because it allows you to get to where you are now, right? Like if you don't have that time and that experience, the way it worked out for you, then maybe you don't have that same epiphany, right? Maybe you don't come to that same realization. So, it's just the idea that things happen when they're supposed to happen and how they happen. It's like fate, right? If you want to go as far.
I got a question for you. So you've been headlining clubs now. This is you're going in. You've done America's Got Talent, Conan. You had a dry bar special, some albums. So where do you see your audience coming from? Like what brings them out? Do you know yet? Your podcast.
It's an interesting split right now between none of it is from Conan or Kimmel.
The big ones.
Wow.
The ones that everyone
really
wants.
Right. Yeah, it's those used to be the things. Late night used to be where you were discovered, and it just isn't anymore. For me, it's right now it's Dry Bar helped. So it's been like between Dry Bar and then I did that documentary series on Amazon, Inside Jokes.
Okay.
That's right.
So I get a lot of people coming out to see that, and those are fun. Those fans, because Amazon never pushed the show, they never advertised it. So the people who found it are just people who love comedy. So it shows up in the algorithm for them.
Right.
So
comedy
those
fans.
people who come, yeah. So and that's what I was saying is like, as long as I can get enough of myself out there using these different mediums so that people can find me, that's like an example of that. And honestly, like with Instagram, as much as I hate Instagram, I only post stand-up, but within the last like year, I've had a success on there. So people have been finding me on that, which is wild to think that we have the power now to give ourselves more exposure than Jimmy Fallon can.
Yeah, that's crazy, right? More than network television, right?
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, because on Instagram, like I've seen your Dry Bar clips, right?
Yeah.
Just because of the algorithm and me being a comedian and think comedy in nature, what have you, they come up and I'm like, I always, I've commented, I'm sure you've read my comments, but I'm like, oh, this is great. I love it, dude. Because it gives me access, and they do a good job of editing and putting out, and you have great jokes, right? Like you have really tight, great jokes that would fit in those segments, right?
Thanks. Yeah.
So, okay. I'm sorry, Sal, go ahead.
No, I lost. I don't know what I was going to say.
To answer the last part of your question, my
okay.
podcast is growing enough now that I get like half a dozen people at every show now that are there from the podcast. So that's like, and podcast fans are like more loyal than any of the fans that know me from anything else. I'm sure you guys have seen that, with some of the comments.
Not yet. It's coming though. It's coming.
The burn is slow.
It is. The podcasting is another slow burn, but the people that know you from it, it's like they feel like they're friends with you. So it's I think it's a neat thing to be able to do it.
Podcast, give it out, shout out.
It's The Book Pile.
The Book Pile.
And him and his other guy reads all these books, and then you review them.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about our favorite parts, lessons that we learned from. We keep it funny. It's very, we try and keep the jokes going.
Okay.
And but yeah, it's every Monday. It's a different book. Sometimes we roast books. We've roasted a couple of the Twilights. We did roast the Da Vinci Code.
Okay.
We roasted How to Win Friends and Influence People, Dale Carnegie.
Okay. Well, if I can I reveal this part? At least I think you said this. You're like, I don't read the books. I audiobook, like you listen to the books.
Still counts, but yes, I listen.
Still counts, absolutely. Still counts. Now, hold on. Let me ask you this: do you read along with the audiobook? at least, like, are you looking at the words while someone else is reading, like in school, right? Like he's gonna read out loud, everyone else read along. Like, are you getting this right here? No.
It is interesting. Like a lot of people don't count it as reading, and I'm like, okay, but I can still I can talk about Grapes of Wrath with you.
Exactly. You got the info.
If I saw the words,
right?
But like I read super slow. Some people can read fast. I read so slowly. Like I wouldn't get through 10% of the books that I'm able to by listening to them if I was just sitting there like reading,
Yeah, I'm with you. I read slow too. Right. So, all right. Well, I'm glad you mentioned this because this is the, the reading, the podcast, and the jokes, and we're talking about them fitting in these vignettes or what have you to some degree. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I love your creativity. I love your sense of humor, and I love the topics. Right. Like one of my favorite jokes of all time is about how powerful the bike lock is. Right.
Oh yeah.
Right. You can just go by. It's like these things are just out in the world. Like go by and put them on someone's door and like, well, you're closed, right? And just keep. I just butchered it, but
you butchered the shit out of it.
I did butcher the shit. I'm sorry. So
well,
it'll
closed.
Get people to go check it out.
Yeah, go check it out. It's one of my favorite jokes of all time. It's amazing. So how do you come up with the ideas? Right? Where do they come from?
Well, I want to know. I love discussing this sort of thing. I want to know what yours are too.
Okay.
For me, it's a combination of like, I do sit and write. I try and write every day. When I can't do that, I've like I'm sure this might be true for you guys too. The voice memos app on my phone is always completely full. Oh
wow. Okay.
Whenever an idea comes, but it's really just. The way that I come up with my ideas is just by coming up with a lot of them. It's just a numbers game to me.
Okay.
It's not like sitting around and waiting for inspiration. It's just, that would take forever, at least for me. Like that's what I consider the muse. The muse is just a game of odds. And so the more you do it, the more likely that you'll find that good idea. Like I can't just sit down and write gold, but I do know that like my process right now is that once I come up or I come up with a bunch of ideas, and then I sort of go to the ones that are my favorites, and then I write in groups of 10 punchlines. So if I have a joke and I think I have the punchline, I write 9 more because I fell into that trap. It's so often early on where you're like, well, the joke is done. You come up with the one line and you're like, you check that box. But just the idea that like a joke can't be improved is crazy, right?
Right.
But it's easy to get comfortable once you get the laugh, you know? And so I write in, like I said, I write in groups of 10, and usually like I get maybe 1 or 2 out of 10. So just knowing that, that's how I do everything. When it's trying to come up with ideas, like you were asking, Reg, how do I come up with them? I just come up with a lot. My goal is to find what I'm trying to mine are those, like, for me personally, are those observational things that no one has talked about yet, stuff that we can relate with, but nobody has mentioned. So that's what's hard to find, is just like being hyper aware of what I'm doing all the time. One of my favorite jokes that I'm doing right now is about how I don't think we need the guys who wave glow sticks at planes. And I like the idea that we've all seen those guys and we never really know like what signal means what, but they're always down there. But in writing out these 10, then 20, then 30 ideas, I found one where it was like, I don't get how this jumbo jet, this marvel of engineering, just crossed the Atlantic. Like, do you really think it needs help with the last 20 feet? So that's what I try. That's what I try and find. That's the secret. When people want to know, like, is there a special notebook you use, or is there a quiet, like a hidden room in a library where you sit and the ideas just come? And it's like, no, I mean, it sucks. It's a lot of it is just so tedious, just sitting there, just trying to crank them out. Because
and once you come up with like bike lock and then the 10, how do you come up before that, like with the premise?
Oh, well, so the bike.
No, I was gonna say, because he just said he's like
like the airport. You got the glow stick, but do you like write down that line and then revisit it, or do you come up with that on the spot while you're sitting down trying to write?
With the punchline or with the idea?
The idea.
Yeah, the idea is more. It's just the observation, like without even really having anything funny yet. It's more with the glow stick guys. It was like, I wonder what those guys do. Like, how are they helping? That's all that was that question. How are these people helping? And with the bike lock one, it was actually just walking through Home Depot and seeing that they just sell lengths of chain, like thick chains.
Yeah.
And I was like, anyone could just buy these chains and a padlock. And that was the original joke, is that and it didn't hit at all. I just said anyone could buy these chains and a padlock and just put it on anything. And I would just sort of get these nods from people. But I knew that there was something there. It seemed like there was something there. Like there are so many other things like that could be weaponized that are just available in stores. And so eventually I chose bike lock because saying chains and a padlock was just too wordy. So the bike lock is nice because it's like all in one.
Right. Well, and also the chain and the bike lock, the chain and the padlock is very linear, right? Because people put chains and padlocks on their gates. Right.
It sounds dangerous and mean. And
but it just sounds very very literal and very direct, right? Like, oh yeah, of course anybody can put a chain in.
That's where you would put it. Yeah.
Right. But the idea of the bike lock, and one of my other favorites, and I hate to do this, but the bike lock, put a bike lock on a bike with a bike lock already, put another bike lock.
That's not stealing.
Dude, that is hilarious. That is so funny because I have a bike with a bike lock on it, right? And just the idea that I show up one day and there's another bike lock on it, like I take mine off and I go, the hell? They're not stealing it. They're preventing me from taking it, right? So
I like it too because all kids had bike locks and we didn't know we had that power.
Oh yeah,
right.
You know?
Well. And for me, one of the things that like, I also think that it's fun to talk about jokes, but it's also like, it's not like I could reverse engineer what I've done to make another similar joke. But I do think that there are certain patterns. Like there's this book called Made to Stick that I recommend to like all comics and writers, and it's all about like making messages that stick. Like there's a reason why urban legends, why we all have heard these urban legends, even though some details are different, they vary every time, but we've all heard those legends because of these certain very often there's like a juxtaposition, but it's a concrete image. And I think that's the reason why just saying vaguely, you could take a chain and a padlock and put it anywhere, that doesn't resonate because you're not really seeing anything. But by saying, and I even have that little act out of going up to a Baskin Robbins, you're closed, like immediately there's this clear image of a bike lock on a Baskin Robbins, and that joke has like resonated more than anything else in that special. Even though other things like other jokes got more laughs, the bike lock joke, that's what people will come up to me afterwards.
Right.
And I was like, if I knew that, I would have put it at the end.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know my closer was in the middle.
That's awesome. Well, it's the other thing that's funny too about that, about the idea of the image of the bike lock is, if a bit like when you show up to work in the morning to unlock your business and you see a bike lock, your day is jacked, right? Because that's not like if you see a padlock and a chain, you go, some stupid kids come up, you just go get someone who gets a saw or whatever, and they what do you call it, a lock, you know what I mean? The bolt cutters. But with bike locks, like you legitimately are closed. Like there's like that's a whole thing, right? Like bolt cutters are gonna cut it. Like you're gonna need to call some heavy duty people, right? So there's another layer to it too. I want to say this too before we move on, because one of the things you said in the green room was about the devoting the time to it, right? Like setting aside the time to write, right? Making it a job, right? This is what you do. And also I want to speak on the other thing that you mentioned too, was about, and I thought this was so important. I love this. I told Mahershala this last night. I remember you saying, giving yourself permission to write bad jokes, right? Like in the process of trying to get to the one or the two that you may get for the whole day is not judging, what you write, right? Giving yourself that space. So
that's exactly it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I was gonna say, if you could just talk about that, at least coming up to that or getting to that mindset and how long it took to get there.
Yeah, I mean, this took up until like I would say maybe 4 or 5 years ago. And like my everything just improved so much after that when I instead of putting that pressure on myself with just sitting down and being like, all right, I need to write some gold. But like it would be crazy. Like if you imagine a gold miner with like every time he hits the rock, he's like, where's the gold? Where's the gold? Where's the gold? You know, it's
Yeah, you go crazy.
such a process. And just knowing that like it is that's just how it works. Like I'll write 20 punchlines. The only ones that end up working are like number 7 and number 15. And sometimes you combine them. You guys know that. Like
Right.
when you can
Right.
combine 2 tags into one.
Oh,
You know, it's such a cool thing.
yeah.
But just knowing that when you sit down, you can't just automatically write idea number 7 and idea number 15. You have to get through all of the bad ones to get to the good ones. There's just no other way. But it's like, instead of thinking of that as tedious or hard work, just knowing that like this is the process.
Yeah.
That is
Right.
how you get to them. I know that this will come, and just having faith in that like writer's block. There are thousands. If you Google like the cure for writer's block, you'll find 10,000 articles on the internet, but you don't need any of that. All you need to know is that it's part of the process. Don't think of it
Right.
as stopping the process.
Right.
Writer's block is the process.
Right.
Like
Oh.
John Cleese, he has this great book that it just came out last year called Creativity, a short and simple guide. And it was so validating to read what he wrote about, because when he talks about this, the metaphor that he uses is, he says, when you're eating food, it's not considered a failure when your fork is empty going back to the plate.
That's
Oh, that's
funny.
awesome. That's good.
And so just
That's
comparing
funny.
that to the creative process is that
Right.
like you need that empty space. You need the writer's block. It's just part of it. And then you'll feed yourself with another good idea. There's
Right.
no other way around it.
So
I
that
like how
sounds
you
okay.
compared us to gold digger, digging for gold, because I've
Mhm.
always thought that, like, you know, we moved to California and it's the people who actually have the tools and stuff are making the money off of it.
It's so
Right,
true.
And so many of us
right.
never get gold.
Yeah. But I like the idea too that you know, you can't just, everything can't be, every strike that you make can't be for gold, right?
No,
It just
yeah.
it's not sustainable, it's not realistic either. And what I'm hearing here is also perspective, right? It's about how you choose to look at things, right? Writer's block, like you're just saying now, it's a part of the process. It's not a hindrance, right? It's
No.
a part of the process, but that's changing your perspective of how you think about things or how you see things.
Yeah.
Yo, man, I love that. That was so, Sal, that's what I was talking about early, was he and I, when we sat in the green room, we had this conversation, and he said basically what he just said just now. Like, it had such an effect on me in the sense of like, I wish that I had known that years
Right.
ago, because one of the things that I have, there's a comedian who passed away not too long ago, a guy named Siddiqui Fuller, that he said something that really struck with me. He was like, whenever he said in his writing process, the thing that he did was when he got to the end of the joke, he'd always say, and then what? Right.
Huh.
Right. He'd go, and then what? Because he was always trying to come up with you got the first story and you got the second story, but then, and then what? Like, what's the third story, the fourth story? And that's where the tags would come up, or the callbacks would come up, or the segue to the next thing, where it's like, you know, you almost kind of create this continuous thread that runs through things, but in the sense of like, what's next, right?
Sure.
And you mentioned earlier about the, you know, being complacent with the joke sometimes, be like, okay, I got the punchline, so it's done, right? I used to say this all the time. I would say the open micer has a premise and no jokes, right? And then the opener has a joke, has a premise and a joke, right, and a punchline. The feature has, you know, the premise, a joke, and a tag, and then the headliner has a story, right?
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, it's just a progression of the growth of the comedian and the evolution of understanding how jokes work. Like, it's more than one punchline, right? And there's more than just one story. There's a second story, third story.
It's great how a headliner, when you see them like dissect one subject to
And-
another level.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
you got
Yes.
7 minutes out of that? Damn.
Exactly. So just think about what I just said, but the opener, the open micer, the opener, the feature, and the headliner, they all have the same premise.
Right.
Right.
Oh,
It's the
that's
same.
interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's the
yeah.
same premise, but this guy just has, man, what's up with traffic? Right. That's the open micer. Right. And then the opener has, man, what's up with traffic? It's like this. And then the feature has, and then the headliner goes in. Traffic is the thing that everyone.
One time I was in traffic. And
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So man, this is great. I love thank you for taking the time, Ella.
Yeah. So where can people
Kellen.
find your stuff? One more time. We'll let them know. You got your book piles, the podcast.
The book piles of podcasts, and then just my Instagram, Kellen Erskine Comic.
Okay. And also name of the book again that you said that every comic should read.
Made to Stick.
Made to Stick.
Made
Okay.
to Stick. And then John Cleese's book. It's a real short, real quick book. Creativity, a short and simple guide. That's my favorite writing book that I've read lately. Yeah.
Okay.
For all the
Okay.
introverts, quiet.
Yeah.
Yeah. And all the introverts quiet.
Yeah.
Tell
And
me,
it's
man.
for extroverts too, so you guys will stop bullying us.
Well, hold on. Remember, I'm an omnivert, right?
No, I know.
Yeah. I'm
I'm
like,
definitely sometimes extrovert. I know that. Like
Yeah.
but I definitely have to be comfortable too.
well, you know, I want to share this too, because you're
Sal,
talking about
with your decibel level, no one would ever mistake you for an introvert.
Oh, right. I know.
no one.
I'm probably
No
really
one.
not. I don't know what I am.
Yo, that was the best and most articulate dig ever. I love it.
Decibel level.
This decibel level, Sal's decibel. I swear, I sit in the back of the room and I watch Sal like this. I go, "Oh my god, holy cow!" I'm like, "Why are you yelling?" Because Sal has, and this is the beauty for the people who go
Amped,
who
y'all.
watch.
I'm amped.
I know Sal has this one character that's in all of his sets, and that's the rant, the loud. And what do you got? And I'm like, "Yo, just pull the mic away, just a little bit." Sal. Sal's like,
I love the rant. I love the rant.
Well, and
I was
also
doing one
too.
last night. One, you just need that one person. Like, yeah,
Exactly. Well, and this is the other one too. And most people don't know this. Sal has a rocker background, right? Like he plays the guitar,
Punk rock, baby.
the punk rock. So there are times in his shows where I go, this dude thinks he's in the concert, right? Like it's Megadeth, right? It's Pantera.
It's like a cappella karaoke.
Yeah, exactly. So, oh man.
Yeah. I should show you a video of me playing one time. I would go crazy. You feel invincible. I always felt. I'm gonna say, when you have an instrument in front of you, dude, you could hide behind that. It's not like comedy. I think comedy is even more vulnerable. But an instrument, people could talk and it doesn't matter because you're just under the tune.
Yeah.
And I felt like I could do anything. You can fuck up notes. No one's even gonna notice because you're jamming. You got other people backing you up.
Dude, Kellen, I've been to like his performances. Like they had a band called The Hacks, which is excellent. It was a bunch of comedians. It's called The Hacks.
It was good. It was Matt Morales, Max Curry, Kevin Kamiya, and me.
Yeah.
Kami
was on the
Curry's
bass.
a drummer, right? Curry is
Max
the
was
drummer?
drums. Matt and I were guitars, and Kamiya was on
the bass.
Oh,
Yep.
that's fun.
So I've
Matt
seen
did
them.
most of the singing, but I would do a couple like gravelly punk stuff.
And I'm telling you right now, when I say Sal was kicking over amps and jumping off stage and hitting it,
I
dude,
hurt
it was
my
like,
leg
okay.
once jumping off an amp, and I had to
Yeah.
fucking use a cane for 2 weeks. It was
Dude.
dangerous.
That's crazy. I just read Dave Grohl's autobiography.
Oh yeah.
And he tells a story about how they were in Gutenberg and he fell off the stage 12 feet. They hit the concrete in front of 50,000 people. And he was so mad that when like the EMTs came up to him, he dislocated his foot, he tore all the ligaments. And he said, what do we have to do? And they're like, well, we have to go to the hospital, get you a brace. It's 30 minutes away. And he was like, F that, I'm performing. The guy, yeah. And so the doctor was like, well, we can bring you a brace, but you can't go anywhere. Like, I have to hold your foot in place. And Dave Grohl is like, well, then you're joining me on stage. And he sat on stage in a chair with his guitar, and this guy just held his leg for an hour.
Wow.
Until they
Wow.
brought this break. Yeah, it's the most insane story.
Dude, that's a level of
Wow.
commitment. That right there is that's next level.
Hold
That's
my
next level.
leg.
Yeah,
The show
I mean-
goes on.
Yeah, really. And you got to give the guy props for actually sitting there holding his leg, because he could have easily been like, I ain't holding your shit. I don't work for you. What you think this is? We'll find you a chair, right? You can prop your leg up on a chair, but I ain't gonna sit there and hold your shit, right?
But yeah, what I
So-
liked about it too is that he loved the audience so much, and that's what he
Yeah.
says in the book. He's like, there's no way I'm not going to give these people their money's worth.
Right.
So he like
Right.
respected them so much that he's like, I'm still going to give them a show.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's that was always my philosophy with comedy was, you know how it is. You show up some nights and it's not very crowded, right? It could be a light night. And I've always felt like a lot of young comics would be like, oh man, there's only 20 people here. There's only 15 people.
Mhm.
And I've always been like, but they're here, right? Like, don't be mad at them for showing up. The other people who didn't show up, don't take it out on these people. Like, let's give them the show, right? Because they're here. Right.
And sometimes those are the most fun ones.
Exactly.
Oh yeah.
I love those intimate shows.
Yeah, it's insane to make fun of that crowd.
Exactly. Like, you're mad at them for showing up and not being more. How come you guys didn't multiply? You guys like, all right, well, we won't come then. All right. Well, there was one thing you asked Kellen, because you said you wanted to know our process of like generating material. Sal, you want to go first?
Well, I mean, a lot of it is factual stuff that my family would piss me off about. But then, like, I would always, like, if there's anything I think of or whatever, either the voice memo or the note app, you write that down, and then I'll go back and revisit it. I probably should dissect it way more than I do. I'm now hearing from Kellen. I'm like, second punch, that one will work. I'll just yell it to the finish line.
Oh, that's awesome. For me, what I realized a long time ago was I tried, like, I wanted to, like, I admire your approach, Kellen, because it's something that I can't do. I've tried to sit down and just try to write and come up with ideas. And what I realized is that I can write jokes, but they don't, let me see, how do I say this? I don't write like I talk, right? And you don't talk like you write, you don't write like you talk, right? And so I could write stuff that when read was pretty funny, right?
Right.
But then I realized whenever I tried to perform it that way, it just came across as too calculated or too tight in a certain way. Too wordy. So what I did was I realized that I was better on my feet. Like, so I would write either on stage or just in conversation, right? Like, if I give myself some space or some room if I'm with people I trust, and just kind of go off on the tangent and just talk about stuff. And then before I know
Reggie's always trying jokes on people is what that means.
No.
Who's that
No,
guy?
but see, okay. No. But see, this is the thing. I was never actively, consciously trying material. It's just my natural instinct to go into the thing. And then because I'm a comedian, they're like, are you trying jokes? I'm like, nah, man, this was a real, authentic, true moment. And can you help me remember what I just said? Because I just went on a thing and it was hilarious. Everyone's cracking up. And I don't know what I just said. Right.
You definitely have to, like, wording is so important that you have to write it or record those moments. Because you lose.
Think about it. You do lose it. And if you're in that moment when it's happening, I can't take that moment to stop and be like, oh, let me record this, because now consciously I've stepped outside. Like, I've become conscious where the comedy is happening unconsciously. Mm-hmm. So it's like, I let the moment exist. And then I go, so wait, what did I just say? Right. In that moment. And then I write down like, okay, so this, and I get the gist of it. And then eventually I recreate it. And eventually I will. So instead of sitting down and writing it, what happens is I will think about it. I'll actually talk it out loud, right? As if I'm doing it. And then it's like I get those beats, and then I find those moments, those little moments in between. And then like you said, like the second and third joke or whatever, it's like then I kind of keep going. I go, how far can I go with this until, and we've all been there where you get to that fourth one and the audience is like, Yeah, that's it, man.
Yeah, there's only so many.
No, but
Yeah.
and that's what I love about it though, is that, and I'm not saying that I'm like I'm not the pattern for what you should do, but the idea, principle is still exactly the same, of whether you write it down or you're just coming up with it on stage. It's still like, it's coming up with all of these things, as milking it as much as you can,
Yes.
and then only
Yes.
keeping the good stuff. Like Stephen King, he calls editing cutting out the boring parts.
Right.
But it's the same
funny.
process. And
Yeah.
I mean, and to your credit too, like that's something that one of the reasons why I do more crowd work now in my set is because I did that for way too long. You guys know me more than anyone else in comedy. I used to just do one-liners, and they
Right.
sounded like after watching myself enough, I was like, I sound like I'm reading stuff while I'm talking on stage.
Right.
And it took me like 10, 11 years to get to the point where I could just talk the way that I am now on stage. And isn't that
Right.
crazy? Like Gary
Yeah.
Goldman calls it pretending to be yourself, but on purpose.
Yeah, that's great. That is great. I love Gary Goldman for that. That's awesome. Pretending to be yourself on purpose, dude. That is awesome. Oh my God, I feel like that's a quote.
I remember he had a great basketball joke about how, like, in the basketball, when there's a penalty, how the basketball, everybody stop, hold on, gather around. Now this is what happened. You touched him.
Yeah.
And now he gets to shoot, and we all watch.
Yeah. So, I think what you just said is really poignant too. Comedy, it's a marathon, man. Right? It's a marathon, because I remember those early years where, in essence, where you're saying you sounded maybe a little bit robotic, right? Or a little rehearsed, right? But you were still funny. But there was like, now there's a more authentic and true and real connection, right?
Right. Yeah.
And so, but it takes time. Comedy is one of those things where it takes time, and there's no substitute for time and experience, right? Like, you got to get on stage, you got to try the material, and you got to retry it, you got to rewrite it, you got to edit, cut, paste, and then there has to be that personal evolutionary growth, that emotional growth, right? That awareness, and then even being able to record and critique yourself, look back at your material and go, wow, okay, so that's what I did for a long time.
That's the worst.
Oh yeah.
But it's all a part of the journey, right? It's all a part of the journey. And now look, some people, I tell this story all the time, but I remember when I first started in the San Francisco comedy scene, there were a handful of guys that showed up so focused and so determined. Like, their level of commitment and dedication to the craft was palpable and very visual. I mean, they showed up at every open mic. They set their camera up in the back. They go up, they do their thing. They break the camera down. They go to another open mic. They set their camera up. You know what I mean? And then they go watch it, and you see them 2 nights later with the same things, and the material was tighter. Like, they were like growing at a rapid pace compared to the rest of us who were like up doing our thing, hanging out, laughing, kicking in the back, maybe record, maybe not record. You know what I mean? Like, just kind of enjoying it, where there were some guys that came in really focused, and opportunities came for a lot of them a lot sooner, right? Than for some of the others of us or whatever. But it's all a part of the journey, man. Right? It is. Yeah, it's all part of the journey. So,
all right, let's let our man go, dude. He's got
okay.
Yeah, we appreciate you doing this.
This has been a good time.
Yeah.
Oh, good. We're glad you enjoyed it, man. We love having you, Kellen, man. You're welcome back anytime. Thank you for taking the time to talk with us and share with us your experiences, and and opening up about your process and everything.
Too, man.
Yeah, it's great seeing you, man.
Yeah, thanks. So, let's do this again.
Absolutely.
Man.
Have a great time tonight. Do your thing. I hope it's not a party of 60 that all know each other.
Tonight, it's gonna be the Moose Lodge.
Okay. All right, man. Well, take care. Have a great time tonight. We really appreciate you.
All right.
All right, God. Have a good one.
See you later.
Thanks, guys.
All
We'll
right.
see you.
There it is, Reg.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. There it
Got
is.
my guest in. Now I can take a break. It's your turn.
Well, he mentioned somebody that I think would be great. Dan St. Paul. I love
changed his
Dan St.
name, had
Paul.
an Italian name, and he changed it. Oh, I forgot. I was gonna tell him, Kellen. Kellen did my podcast like in 2013, 14 or so,
Mhm.
and it was right after he did America's Got Talent. He just tells that whole story, and there was some cool stuff because he came up at the beginning, but then at the end, like the last one, he did it, and like they didn't really get it, the joke.
Okay.
And Greg Giraldo was the judge at the time, and
Oh.
he said Greg said something like, "Well, I guess if you have to explain the joke to us afterwards, it's probably not going to work."
Come on, Greg. Come on, Greg. Why you gotta do my man like that on TV,
So
bro?
yeah, it was just like from there, and now to see he's done so much better now for himself.
Well, it's
doing great.
I was when I talked to him in San Francisco, one of the things I remember saying was, I remember where there had been at least 2 or 3 occasions where I was headlining the San Francisco Punchline, and Kellen was opening. And there was another time where I was featuring. He and I worked with Ian Edwards. Ian Edwards was headlining. I was featuring. Kellen was opening. There's another time that I headlined the San Francisco Punchline that Kellen was opening. And then there was another time where I was headlining the San Jose Improv and Kellen was opening. And then, right before the pandemic, he was headlining and I was featuring for him. He invited me to do a thing with him. It was a place down in the South Bay somewhere, kind of like
Oh, I just lost you, bro. I guess it's better I did it now. Look at Reggie's frozen ass face. All right, well, that was our podcast today. Thanks for listening, everybody. Kellen Erskine, one of the best. Check him out online. And this is the best way to get Reggie to stop talking. You just have the Zoom freeze on him. All right, so thanks for listening. We'll catch you all next week. That's Reggie Steele. I'm Sal Kalani. Peace.